Welcome back to Discipleship Ministries. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I'm super excited you're here. I am just believing that God is blessing you through this little mini series. If you don't know, this is part 3 of our little mini series we are doing over the life of Joseph. We're talking about Joseph's life from his brothers when they sold him into slavery to his time in the palace. So we're going over that last part. We talked about the whole situation with Potiphar and what happened there. So now Joseph's just been thrown in prison, and the prison warden's sees the favor of God on him, and he's like, I'm putting him in charge. So today we're going to be going over more of what happens while Joseph is in prison. So if you're following along, we are in Genesis chapter 40. We're starting at the top of there. So we're this little subsection in my Bible is called the cupbearer and the baker. So let's figure out what happens. So if you're following along, chapter 40. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master. The king of Egypt, Pharaoh, was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. So the high cupbearer and baker of Pharaoh, these are the guys that prepared and did stuff close by Pharaoh. They offended him. He said throw them in jail, and they happened to be thrown in the same jail that Joseph was at, right? After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody and with him in his master's house, why do you look so sad today? So he sees them, right, and he's like, hey, you're in here too. What's going on? Why are you upset, right? We both had dreams, they answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, in my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clustered ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand. This is what it means, Joseph said to him. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. So right there, the cupbearer's like, look, bro, we have dreams. And Joseph's like, okay, well, God is the one who's supposed to interpret our dreams. And Joseph had this really cool thing where, he had dreams like we talked about before, and he could kind of interpret them. He kind of understood what they meant, or God would, tell him what they meant. So he's like, hey, tell me, and, I'll see, what God says. He tells him the dream, 3 vines, right? And Joseph explains. But then he's like, what I find funny is Joseph's like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm in here. So when you get up there to Pharaoh, could you mention me, like if you are sitting at the dinner table one night, and he's like, man, I could use, whatever. I'll do whatever. Just get me out of here, right? So, verse number 16 says, when the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head there were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Whoa. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand, but he impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him.